Yesterday we looked at the worshiper, the one with a heart of thanksgiving, and that set the foundation for the things we'll be talking about for the rest of the week. And by the grace of God tonight or this evening, we'll be talking about the relevance of salt. You know, we're looking at you are the salt of the earth. The relevance of salt. Then tomorrow, by the grace of God, we'll be looking at the impact that salt creates. The impact of salt. And then on the last day, by His special grace, unless the Spirit changes it, we'll be looking at sustaining your impact. Sustaining your impact. So relevance, impact, and sustenance. So tonight, we're looking at relevance. Relevance. And our text is still the same as we read yesterday, or one of the two texts that we read yesterday. And that is Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. Matthew 5, 13. It says, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." You are the salt. You are the salt. This particular passage is telling us two very crucial things that we must pay attention to. One is the who we are, and the second is how we must maintain our relevance. Otherwise, we'll be thrown out. Thrown out. Salt is good. And I know we have mummies and sisters here who appreciate the use of salt. I remember those days, my mom would buy Iru. What is Iru now? Locust bean. And she will buy it a lot. And she has the habit of sending it to her sisters that are scattered all over Nigeria. And then she will mix it with a lot of salt. A lot of salt. And then one day I asked, "Why do you put so much salt into this thing?" And she said, "The salt will keep it. The salt will keep it." And she would tie it up. And I know that sometimes, after sending out to all those people, she would tie up a piece and they would just throw it. We did not have refrigerator or anything like that to freeze it. She would just throw it in one corner in the kitchen, and it's kept there for a long time. As I grew older, I began to understand that salt has some elements that is preservative in nature, that keeps things from getting spoiled. Therefore, one of the relevance of salt is preservation. Preservation. Another relevance of salt is that of seasoning. You know, I love eating rice. It's saltless. Maybe it's just me, my taste. But I also eat rice that is well seasoned with salt. I can tell the difference. I can tell, oh, there's salt in this one. I can tell, yeah, there's no salt in that. Even though I love to eat rice without salt, but I can also savor the good taste of rice when it is adequately salted. I can also tell from a soup that is well made when it has sufficient salt. I also know when it is over-salted. But do you know that we can never identify salt within the soup, nor in the rice. Yet, we know the taste of salt. And salt, when it is in this good food that we eat, tells its impact, its presence, its relevance. Brethren, if you will be salt as God has instructed, and this will not just be another program, another gathering, it is time we begin to pay attention to our relevance. How relevant are you? How relevant are the things that you are doing? How relevant are you within the society, within the community where you exist. There are 3 areas that I beg of you that you be purposefully relevant and begin to look at it in such a way that you plan your life, you program yourself, and you become relevant in these 3 areas. But before I mention the 3 areas, I want you to know that being relevant is a deliberate thing. Hello? You have to be deliberate about it. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional about it. The first area that you need to re-examine your relevance and be sure that indeed you are still holding forth as salt that has not lost its taste, either as a church existing for 45 years or as an individual who has been in the Lord for some time or someone that has been called. The first area is the kingdom of God. Sir, Ma here seated, if I mention the name of some ministers that we started together here in Ilorin many years ago, you may know them. But do you know that some of us are no longer relevant in the schemes of things as it pertains to heaven? I know some that we started together. We will pray and fast together. But today, they are more relevant in the world, even though they still wear the collar. They are more relevant in their own, how do I put it? They are more relevant to themselves than they are to the kingdom. And the big question is, how relevant are you to the kingdom? How relevant are you, sir, ma, in the program of God, in the things that God is doing? Back in the college where I'm provost, one of the things I struggle with, there are people who are still there, but they are no longer relevant in that place. Yeah, they still bear the title, they have the office, they still go to class, but they are no longer relevant to the program of God. And that is a disaster. You know, brothers and sisters, I often tell people, we can have success by the standard of men. We can have achievements by our goals, the goals that we have set for ourselves. But until these things are relevant to God and to God's program, they will not have eternal value. The only thing that lasts forever and we have eternal value is what is relevant, the scheme of things according to God's program. So I want you to ask yourself, as I am asking me today, am I still relevant to heaven? The things I do, the programs I have set up, the plans I have ahead of me, is it relevant to the purpose of God and what God wants done on this side of heaven? You know, in the world today, especially in the church, we have a lot of programs. So many programs. Some will block the street and cause hold up, long queues, but we fail to ask ourselves, what is God's mind concerning these things that we are doing? In the body of Christ, there's a lot of politicking. Hello? Oh, I'm from Akwado. Some of you may not have heard of that. And it is easy for me to say quickly because Brother Babajide is not from Akwado, but hypothetically. Because he's from there, I want to favor him more than I will favor Reverend, even though he's our father, because we are from the same place. I have forgotten that I am a Christian. I have forgotten that I must consider first the intent and the programming of God. What is God saying about the situation? Not what I desire. There's nothing so much evil about politics. We are all political animals. Hello? But when politicking overrides the intention and the purpose of God, then we are in trouble. We program ourselves out of relevance to the things and the schemes of heaven. And I beg my brothers and sisters, yes, in our planning, in our politicking, in our this and that, can we settle down and reconsider how relevant those things we're doing are in the programs of God? Are you still relevant to heaven? Yeah, we have 45 years. We've been doing one thing or the other over this period of time. But can we stop for a moment and ask, are we still relevant to his program? As a church, as we ask one another, I also want you to ask yourself as an individual, how relevant am I to the programs of God? I want to tell you a story. This is about me. I used to fast in those days. Maybe that's why I didn't grow very tall. Because I failed to eat. Okay, so there was this time I would fast from Wednesday till Sunday after service. So once I come to church on Wednesday, I'm not going home until after service on Sunday. Fasting, no food, no water, praying, and I'll be in the presence of the Lord. And I did that very often. Very, very often. And asked me what I was praying about. I can't remember specifically, but I knew I was praying. Honestly, I can't say I wasn't sick. I wasn't looking for a wife. Probably too young for a wife then. I wasn't looking for money. There was no idea of money. But I'll just be there praying. So I did that so many times. Then after a while, I got married. And this day, I remembered that I used to fast in those days. So I told mommy, say, look, darling, I'm going to church. I won't be back until after service on Sunday. She said, why? I said, because I want to be in the presence of the Lord. And the poor woman was very happy. Oh, daddy is going on a retreat. By the time he comes back, the Holy Spirit will be fresh. Everything will be... No, my wife is a little more religious than I am. Maybe she's even more godly. So I went to church on Wednesday, and I began to pray. And I prayed. After everybody left, they said goodbye. I was still in church. I prayed on and on. Thursday morning, it was still fine. But by Thursday evening, I didn't know whether I was praying or I was hoping. By midnight, going to Friday morning, the pillars in the church had started to move around. And they were singing praises that I didn't dance to at all. And it wasn't funny. So I was, instead of praying and worshiping, I was actually praying that the day will break on Friday morning. The moment it was daybreak on Friday morning, I packed my Bible and everything, and home I went. Very early. Before my wife could leave for work, I was home. And she said, Sebi, you said Sunday. I was the one that said Sunday, and now I'm here. But after a while, I had to ask, why couldn't I make it? And the question that was asked me is this: why do you do that? What is the relevance of that religious practice to the calling that God has given you? Yes, it is good to pray. 2 lessons God taught me in life. One was about fasting and praying in that circle. The other one was the fact that every Tuesday, and I did that continuously for a period of about 7 years, I would go out for evangelism in those days. So there was this evening on Tuesday, and sometimes I do it like this. It will be, it's 4 p.m., So I quickly grab the Bible and speak to anyone, so that I will not break the tradition. And I will come to the pulpit sometimes, and I will say with pride and not lying, that, to the glory of God, for over 6 years, I have consistently gone out for evangelism on Tuesdays. And people look at me and say, wow, this is a super Christian. Until the Holy Spirit said, you know why you do that? It is so that you can stand before the people and brag about it, and you won't be lying. But really, how intentional are you? I just grab the Bible and talk to someone without praying for him, but only to satisfy my whatever you call that now. My religious, that was the time I stopped it. Because it says there are things we do it religiously, but it is not relevant to the kingdom. Is it God that is instructing you to do that? That position you are fighting for in the church, is it God? 2 years ago, I had opportunity either to come to Ilorin or move on to the US. And you know, my children, they said, look, go to US, you will have better medical this, you have that, you have this. I'm not a sick man. It will also open door for our last born, the youngest in the house, because that one can still go on my ticket. But I said, no. What is God saying? So I came to Ilorin. Daddy here will testify. The first year was turbulent because I came amidst a people who didn't want any change. And I asked myself, God, did you send me here? Is this you? The only thing that gave me hope and gave me energy to go on is because I realized this is part of God's programming for me for now. It's a lot of sacrifice. And you will pay the sacrifice. So what I want to encourage us to do, take your life again. How relevant are you to the things of God? How relevant? You know, most of us here are in the academia. And honestly, I envy you. I wish I am like you. Honestly. I look forward, though that may not come, to a day I will be Professor Ebenezer Kayode. So when they introduce me, I can stand like this. I'm a prof. I love that title. I'm confessing. And that's true. I love it. But I may never get it. I may never get it. But do you know one thing? It is better for me to begin to put my energy in the things that will be relevant to the kingdom for me. My write-ups should not be for the shelf. We will get there when we talk tomorrow about impact. Especially to those of us in the academia. How can you turn your resources, your strength to creating impact in people's lives? You know, one of the sad things about academy is that you have beautiful things, great ideas, but they all end up on the shelf. Not in the hands of those who will benefit from it. I pray God will help us tomorrow. But let us come back to today. How relevant are you to the things of God? Now, time is going. Let's take the second area where you need to be relevant. It's your family. Hello? If you have not grown to the point that everybody is expecting you to say something before they do something, you are not relevant. You know, yet, that is what some people are sad about. They say, everything is me. You better thank God that it's you. Because if it is not you, it will be somebody else. One day, a brother came to me in the office. I was still in Lagos, and he said, Pastor, I'm tired of my people. Every time it's me. Money, this one pays school fees. That one is hospital. This one is this one is that. And after he said everything that they are asking him, I said, do you give them when they ask? Say, I give them, but I'm tired. Say, okay, would you rather turn the table that it will be you begging them for food, begging someone for house rent, begging another for school fees? Would you rather that God will turn that table? He said, no. I said, then you must be happy that you are the one. You are so relevant to them that they will keep asking you. So how relevant are you to your family? There are men who are married and no longer relevant to their wives. So, apart from Mrs. Kayode, that's the only relevance. They hardly talk. No planning. Nothing. they live as flatmates, yet both of them speak in tongues. Both of them pray by the Bible. And in their own personal, intimate life, there is no relevance. I know a man who has 4 children, and it's not relevant to them in any way. To the point that, when we say, Baba Nye, that talking of the father, that man. How relevant are we to our children? How relevant are we to our brothers and sisters? To people that we are of the same blood. Now, your relevance is giving them money and giving them their daily needs as they needed it. Your relevance is how much impact are you creating in their lives that will also point them towards Christ. Because at the end of the day, that is what truly matters. So how relevant are you? As children, how relevant are we to our parents? Let it not be counted among you that there will be someone who will say, that mama, your mother, I will never talk to her again. Even if she's a witch. Say, Pastor, you don't know. Until you have the devil for a father, you won't understand what I'm talking about. Yes. Even if the devil were to be my father, he will know that he has a son. How relevant are you to your family? Let's look at the third one quickly. And that is, how relevant are you to the society where you live? The other day, I was driving on Bankantoni Way in Lagos. That's in Ikeja. And, go slow now. I leveled up with a bus, and on the bus is written the name of a church, well-known church. So because I don't want to be offensive, and it is written. So let's say Kayode International Churches. And then the man who sat in front, the driver is on the other side. He sat in front on this side, just did something like this, and it landed on my bonnet. Bam! And instead of him to even show concern, he just turned his face the other way. And there's no way I would drive without seeing that thing. And that is a Christian. Let's even say that was error. But it wasn't Christian enough to own up and just show a little bit of apology. And I thank God such a day was a day that I went out with my Christian mind. If it was another day, I may pull him out and use his head to clean it. No, that's just joking. I'm not that big. But then, but I would have said something. But it taught me a lesson. As a Christian, what impact are you creating on the society? Do you drink Coke and throw the thing through the window? Or you drink water and that water sachet, just throw it through the window and then it ends up in the gutter and block the place and cause flood in the whole town? That is your contribution. How often do you pray and take charge of the environment where you live? What are the positive things you say as a Christian that is to make your society better? What is your impact, your positive impact where you live? I once lived in a compound in Lagos. It's an estate. And in that estate, we had this brother. Hallelujah. If bro is praying, the whole estate will hear. And then he goes on and on in the middle of the night. And people were getting offended. Then, as a pastor, I would defend him. Say, look, you don't know, maybe by the Spirit is the one that God is using to. They say, hey, go for where? Leave us, Joe. So, I would defend him. But there was one habit of his that I cannot defend. End of the month, we all contribute only 5,000 naira to maintain the security, the cleaning and everything, and my brother will not pay. Not because he does not have, because he has a better car than I do. He has smaller family than I do. Yet he would not pay. So it became notorious that the time he left the estate, everybody almost rejoiced. Except, okay, maybe not. So is that your testimony? Do you live where you are and people will say, oh, we're going to miss you, and that will be for real? You know, people will always say, we will miss you. Even they are happy you are going. So what's your impact? How relevant are you in the society where you live? Let me close with this. How do you create relevance? How do you create relevance? How do you prepare to have what we call heavenly relevance? Two very important things. One is in learning. And I thank God that this is not strange to all of you. You all are people who have been accustomed to learning and relearning and learning again. But the big question is, what is the major content of what you are interested in learning? Apart from learning physics and medicine and even religious studies, like some of us, do you learn? Are you quick to learn what it would take for you to be better positioned in the hands of God? What do you read? And I want to speak to younger people here. You know, there's a culture in the world today that the world has given onto young people. Social media. They spend hours on ending on the social media. Some will be awake up until 3 a.m. and they will have to get out by 7 a.m. Doing what? Social mediaing. If there's any English like that. Let me tell you, it is the devil's intention to slow you down. If you don't sleep well, thank God that Daddy is here, they are physicians. It will have its ultimate impact on your life, on your well-being. And then the more you feed yourself with the chunks provided from the social media, the more you are being transformed into another image. Slowly, and you may not know it. That's what we call gradual but sure indoctrination that is happening on the social media. It is subtle, it is gradual, but it is sure. You never know that you are shifting base gradually by the things you see all the time and hear all the time. And the devil knows it. So be careful what you eat with your eyes. Be careful what you consume with your ears. Be careful the things that excite your spirit man, because it is forming you into another person that may not be the desired person that God is creating. So what are you learning? Preparing to be relevant. What is the majority of what you consume as you prepare for relevance? And then the second thing is developing character. Developing character. I know I once read the story of a great evangelist. Great man. When he speaks, people come from all over the United States to listen to him. And he was privileged. He was positioned. He was loved. He was honored. He was respected. Oh, great were the opportunities that this young man had. Until one day, when his sin found him out. And then, because of lack of character, every reputation that he had built over the years came down, crashing like a pack of cards. Character. Character. Brethren, that sin that we do not deal with on time is waiting for a day of manifestation to deal with us. Character. There is no relevance without adequate formation of character. The Christ kind of character. The Christ kind of life. The Christ kind of disposition. And when we put all of this together, brothers and sisters, we are beginning to build ourselves into being a relevant vessel in the things of God. Remember where I started from? We are 45 years as a congregation. Some of us have been in faith long before that 45 years. Some of us have been in faith maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years, maybe 40, maybe 10, maybe 5 or less. But no matter how long you've been around this corner that we call of the Lord and the faith that we call Christianity, ask yourself, how relevant are you to the things of heaven, to the things of your home, and to the things of the society where you live? How relevant are you? I want to encourage us tonight. Don't just take this as another gathering, another meeting. No. Let us be intentional about it. When we get back home tonight, let the Holy Spirit guide our thinking again and ask us that $1 million question. How relevant am I? Will all this just be activities? And at the end of the day, it is over and that is the end? I pray it will not be so in the name of Jesus. So tonight, by the grace of God, brothers and sisters, let us go back and begin to think. Am I relevant in the program of God? Am I relevant in the life of those who matter to me? Am I relevant in the society where I live? Or am I just a passing shadow that will make no impression whatsoever in anybody's life? The only thing that can make this anniversary meaningful and memorable is when we begin to develop the attitude of being relevant. So that in another 40 years' time, this chapel will still be producing people who are relevant to the kingdom, relevant to their homes, and relevant to the society. Shall we pray together? I want you to talk to God. Ask Him for mercy tonight. Ask Him for better understanding. Ask Him to speak to me or speak to you on what it's going to take for me to be relevant. For me to be relevant. I pray, oh Lord, that this will not just be another activity, but, oh Lord, it will spark up something in us that will teach us to continually be relevant in the things of heaven. Father, tonight, let your grace be sufficient for us. Let your word multiply in our hearts and take all the glory.